Hello, all you positive heads out there. Thanks for tuning in on this podcast. I am thrilled to have the founder of the mind-blowing website, highexistence.com, Jordan Lejuwaan, here with me. High Existence is a hub for all things thought-provoking, truly delivers on its claim to provide daily boosts to your consciousness. If you check out the site mission statement, it says their aim is to provide a medium for free-thinking individuals to connect and discuss, compel people to follow their bliss and make a life, not a career, to explore all aspects of the human condition, to question anything and everything that is considered normal, and to promote the general spread of happiness and love. All things that are very close to my own heart, of course, which is why I really wanted to have Jordan on the show. Hey, Jordan, welcome.
Hey, Brandon. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. So jump right in. How did you get started with High Existence? What inspired you with this project?
That goes back to 2009. I was attending the University of Southern California, and I was studying business, which was not as awesome as I thought it would be. So I was back home for winter break and just kind of taking a lot of walks and trying to figure out what I should be doing. And I came upon a book in my father's library called The New Psycho-Cybernetics by Dr. Maxwell Maltz. And that book's kind of about like a scientific view of positive thinking and like law of attraction type things. And that was my first introduction to the world of like self-improvement and new age spirituality, that type of stuff. Sure. And so when I went back to school, I started using StumbleUpon a lot and came across so much more content in that area and started meditating and started using psychedelics in a spiritual way and just really exploring the internet and finding all these things that I had never heard of before. And I started looking for one website where I could find more about all of this and couldn't find it. So I decided to create High Existence.
Interesting. So you basically were doing a lot of research and stumbling upon interesting topics and information pertaining to law of attraction and consciousness, and realized there wasn't anything out there that compiled it all together, and took it upon yourself to do it.
Yeah. So I decided to stop going to classes second semester and just stayed in the dorms.
Oh, wow. So you dropped out to start High Existence.
Oh, totally. Yeah. It was actually a really easy decision. Considering how much I hated writing essays and going to class and doing homework and everything. It just wasn't fulfilling, and it seemed to be preparing me just to apply to be a manager somewhere, which is just not what I wanted to do.
Sure.
So I figured, why not use the scholarship and just hang out for the rest of the year and learn code in my dorm. And that's what I did. It was really fun.
Pretty awesome. So you stayed living on campus and stayed in the dorm, and instead of taking the curriculum you were basically getting, that they were paying for you to take, you just adopted did you consider just switching to a computer science major or anything like that?
No, at that time I didn't know that I really wanted to go deep into the code. I just thought I just need to learn WordPress and maybe some basic theme modifications. And only later did I figure out how much I love coding and got much deeper into that. Wow,
very interesting. So you taught yourself everything you needed to know. Do you currently manage all aspects of the site as far as coding is concerned?
As far as coding is concerned, yes. Yeah, okay. So sole coder and designer of the site.
Wow, very impressive. Now you're fairly young, aren't you, as well? I mean, you said college 2009.
Yeah, I'm 24.
Okay, wow. Yeah, that's a lot. You've achieved a lot, because High Existence, you guys are growing. I mean, just the year or so I've been aware of the site, it seems like it's becoming more and more robust all the time, and a lot of activity. So congratulations on your success at such a young age, especially. Now, did you grow up in the Southern California area, or what was your upbringing?
I grew up in Orange County.
Oh, okay. Okay, that's where I'm currently located. So, and what was your upbringing like? Was this something that your family was really supportive of you stepping out and doing? I mean, I know with most traditional households, quitting college and taking your own curriculum is not normally encouraged, but I don't know, maybe you had support.
No, not at all. I had support from my father, who was kind of a renegade in his days, but everyone else in the family was very against it. My mom already had the USC mom sticker on her car and just, didn't want to take it off.
That's too funny.
Loved telling her friends that her son was going to USC. So she was really disappointed and thought I was throwing everything away. My grandfather went to USC, so he was, very proud of me going there.
Following in his
he just kept saying, "You're making a huge mistake. You're making a huge mistake." So no, it was a really hard thing with the family, and family reunions were a bit awkward for a year or two after, until I showed them, I was actually doing something with my life.
Yeah. Yeah. And of course you have some unconventional content and some, stuff. For those of you who haven't checked out the site, of course, high existence implies a certain idea. What inspired you for that? And you mentioned earlier using psychedelics was part of your journey. Tell me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So since day one, I've been very unapologetic in writing about my usage of psychedelics, because they've been so instrumental in my own development. For probably the first 4 years after 2009, if you had asked me like who my teachers were, like who inspired me and who taught me, I would say psychedelics. I would say magic, psilocybin, LSD, DMT, things like that. Actually, since then, I would say that having a relationship with an amazing partner is an even better teacher. But
someone just won a lot of points right there.
It's true, though. It's true. A trip is one thing, but a journey with a partner who challenges you is a whole nother.
Yeah. No, I'm with you on that. I'm definitely a big advocate of psychedelic use. However, it is the sort of thing I think, I was talking about the subject with someone recently and about using psychedelics and her use of psychedelics. And she quoted Alan Watts, and she said something to the effect, I think the quote, and don't hang me for this if I get it wrong, but it was something to the effect of, if you receive this call, hang up the phone. And what her interpretation of that quote in pertaining to her use of psychedelics was, hey, I've gotten what I can out of that particular psychedelic, and there's nothing more that it can teach me. So I think that's an important point, is and I'm still an advocate and a user of psychedelics. I think they're in plant medicines, I think they're great, wonderful teachers. But there comes a point in time with some, I can use, you mentioned mushrooms as an example. When I was, in my early 20s, I loved mushrooms and I used them regularly, and they helped me so much in my development. But now if I take them, I get a different kind of experience. It's kind of like I feel like I've gotten what I can out of them. Although I've recently tried ayahuasca for the first time, and that has been just profoundly healing and really beneficial to my growth. So I think it's it can be a substance or a plant medicine or something like that, but it also, of course, most growth in life comes from, I think it's arguable that most growth can come from personal relationships more than anything else. So I think that's interesting that you bring that up and tie it in. Yeah,
I've had the same experience as you, actually. I was a really avid tripper, maybe as early as like 3 years ago. I'd trip like once a month, once every 2 months, and it was always a fantastic learning experience. And then most every substance, especially mushrooms and marijuana, have completely changed in the last 2 or so years. Where I go into it expecting the same experience I used to have every time, and then it's just completely different. And I feel like, there's something to be said of, once you get all you can from a substance, then it's time to step away. And I also like the metaphor of, if you use a medicine too often or too many times, it becomes a poison.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. So the site itself, High Existence, tell me about, you recently did a website makeover. So I kind of compare it to a dig or a Reddit for mind expanding and consciousness raising material. Tell me a little bit about that makeover and how that's been for you.
Sure. Yeah, it's High Existence has been completely redesigned maybe like 6 times since the very first time, like 4 major overhauls with a bunch of new features. Because as a coder, and I'm always thinking of like ways to improve the site, and never satisfied. So it started off as just a blog, just me writing blog articles. And then I brought in a partner, an amazing guy named Martijn from Amsterdam, and he suggested that we add discussion forums. And that ushered in like a whole new era of high existence, because it actually created a community of people that were on there and like asking big questions and helping each other. And it was amazing to see the connections that people started forming on there. Like I met my past 3 girlfriends through high existence, and I've had tons of people say that they've met, their new best friend, or I've had 2 people say they met their spouse through high existence.
Wow.
That's really cool. Yeah. Because there's the common thing with high existence. The message I got so often was, I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only person thinking about these types of things.
Sure.
Specifically, if you're not from a major city, if you're from the middle of Idaho or something like that, it's probably difficult to find people who are thinking about the same things, that are even, considering meditating or something like that. So they would come on high existence and be like, wow, all these people are like me. And then they would love it.
Yeah.
But so going back to the evolution of it, after that, we added the ability for people to submit images and videos and quotes, anything that was still like in line with the mission of high existence. And then most recently, we made the front page very much like Reddit. So it's mostly all user submitted content. And we also allow people to submit external links. So, if there's a blog article on another site, it doesn't need to be reposted on our blog. You can just share the link. And then everything's upvoted and sorted, kind of like Reddit.
Very interesting. Yeah. And you did that makeover. I mean, that is a pretty big departure from how the site looked. What was it? Maybe 6 months ago or so that you did that makeover?
6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. 'Cause that's a few months after I originally was turned on to the site by our mutual friend, Chris Ponzi. And, yeah, it's such a great spot for any of you guys out there who love Reddit or, Dig or sites like that. And you also love mind expanding, consciousness expanding material. This is your site. You guys definitely need to check out highexistence.com. It's so you can get lost for a long time. There's a lot of really, really great material and information. And as far as the information, you mentioned that people can, of course, link things. As far you also are generating content from your own, you have your own curators. How does that work?
I have 2 guys that work for the site, and their job is to make sure that the front page is filled every day. So just in case, that day no random people or site members are submitting content, they have stuff ready to go.
I see.
But also, we just have moderators that make sure that the content that is submitted is high quality before it goes on the front page.
Sure. Very cool. So in your best of articles that you have linked on the homepage of highexistence.com, you have one from a while ago that you wrote that I really like. It was 50 life secrets and tips. Can you name a few favorites from that article?
Yeah, sure. That article is actually the first one that went really viral on High Existence. It got picked up by StumbleUpon, and that article in particular and one other one are probably the reason why you know about High Existence and anyone knows about High Existence.
Oh, really?
Yeah. StumbleUpon has been huge in terms of traffic for High Existence, even to this day. But yeah, some of my favorites from that article, a timeless one, learn to focus only on the present. Actually, I got a tattoo a couple of years ago up when I was living at a sustainable community in Canada. And it's a circle that's just on my hand. But for a good 6 months before I got that tattoo, I was just drawing in a circle on my hand every day in the morning. And it was a reminder, like whenever I looked at it during the day, to just stay present. And it was awesome to just draw it in every day. And I almost regret getting the tattoo, because it's easy to kind of overlook tattoos and forget it's there, as opposed to something you draw in, mark into your flesh every day.
Sure. Yeah. Wow. Okay. So what other ones you got for me? That's definitely a good one. One of my favorite books of all time is The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle. I'm assuming you've probably heard of it. All about living in the present. Yeah.
The other big one, one of them on there, number 18, read Bringers of Light and Conversations with God by Neale Donald Walsch. If anyone asks me, like, what's the number one book you recommend reading, It's Conversations with God.
That's me too. That's so funny.
Yeah?
Like literally, I just said one of my favorites is Power of Now. My favorite, I actually just ordered it and sent it to a friend last week. My very favorite of all time is Conversations with God. So how funny that would come up next and you would say that, because it is. I just saw him actually speak at Lightning in a Bottle Festival.
Oh, no way. I'm very jealous.
He was awesome. Oh, really, really good. He was phenomenal. That was my first time seeing him speak live. You know, I read the books many, many, many years ago, and to this day, they're my favorites. So that's so funny that you named that one. Yeah, and for those of you who haven't heard of it, it's essentially a book. You know, it's a guy who was homeless, you know, really rough kind of run, and he started writing questions to God that you know, basically just asking, hey, what the heck is this life about? What's going on? And he started receiving answers. And I always say whether or not it was God talking to him or him thinking it was God is really irrelevant, especially when you take a look at the material, because God basically talks about in the books is we are all God. We are all one with the source, creator, whatever you want to call it. So, you know, if that is true, and of course I believe that, and obviously you believe that if that's your favorite book or your favorite book. So it's irrelevant. Like all material is channeled and inspired, I would say. And that material really explains, you know, the ultimate nature of reality in a way that very few texts I've ever written do. So I highly recommend anyone to check that out.
Yeah, it's the most logical, just sensical model of reality that I've come across. It just makes sense.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And it feels right. It's one of those things that just resonates deeply in you. And, you know, it's always one of those things. It's like I always say, I don't think there's anything I can tell anyone. Our souls have all the answers. It's a matter of remembering, you know, what we've kind of forgotten in our amnesia here as, you know, human beings. Mm-hmm. So, very cool. So any others on there that would jump out at you that you really like? Because you wrote this a while ago, so it's probably interesting for you to look at it after all these years. You know, as that being one of your first articles and the changes that you've went through in your own journey, it probably some of them resonate very strongly or more so than others, I would guess.
Yeah, it's almost like reading through High Existence and old articles, which I rarely do. But it's almost like, you know, peeking into the past and seeing the things that I was thinking about back then. And it's funny I mentioned journals. Another one on here is keep a journal diary, which I've always been just horrible at. So bad. Especially when I've tried to do a written diary, because I feel like writing is just slow and I don't like my writing, you know, feels sloppy. So there's this website I found called Mindlogger. It's mindlogr.com. Mm-hmm. And it's the only site that I found that is free video journaling. Oh, wow. So instead of having to write down your thoughts or even type them out, you can just talk, which is awesome because when you look back and we'll look at the videos, you get a so much better idea of where you were at and like what you looked like. And there's so many other visual cues for reflection. And it's great. You know, like it logs it by the day, and it's totally free unless you want some features that you don't really need. So great website.
Mm-hmm. Wow, very interesting. It makes me think of what is the movie where they're on the planet and in the giant aliens. Oh, why am I completely blanking on it? The big blue aliens, and he's keeping a log every single. Avatar. I don't know why I could not remember that for a second. So yeah, it reminds me of Avatar, where he's you know, keeping a video diary, I guess, every day, and so that's a cool idea. I'll have to check that site out. You said it's Mindlogger?
Mindlogger, yeah.
Okay, cool. So that's some great life secrets, and of course, people can go on and check out the other 47 or so. You mentioned during that you lived in a sustainable community in Canada. What was that like?
It's actually a sustainable community and movement called the Valhalla Movement that I co-founded in 2013, I think, or 2012. Basically, at the time, I was really fascinated with the idea of bringing a whole bunch of awesome people together and having them live in a communal space, and just what kind of projects and ideas would come out of that.
And we have so much in common. That is like a huge passion of mine. I just did an interview with Jonah Haas from Lucidity Festivals. I don't know if you know him or are familiar with Lucidity, but no. We talked a lot about that, and his that's a big part of what they're looking to accomplish. And I have a business partner that just came into a lot of land in Mexico, so talking about trying to carve out possibly a little portion of it and actually do that sort of thing. So I'm very interested to hear about this. I had no idea that you were involved in anything like this, so please tell me what you've done with that.
Oh, yeah. So I was connected to a friend who had just bought 60 acres of land just outside of Montreal, Canada. It was basically the closest agricultural land area to the downtown of Montreal. So it was maybe 25 minutes outside of Montreal, which is awesome.
Right.
And he wanted to build a sustainable community on the land.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is perfect. This is so serendipitous. And so I bought a plane ticket and moved up to Canada like 2 months later.
Wow.
And he had already collected just an amazing group of people who he had gone to school with. And there was maybe, I think, 6 of us in the very beginning. And what started out as just, wanting to build our own community there turned into something much bigger and into a movement where we wanted to help make sustainable living more mainstream. Because right now, when someone thinks of, or when you mention sustainable communities or just even living sustainably, people think of like hippies running around naked in the woods or a type of lifestyle that requires you to give up the niceties of modern society in order to live, in communion with the earth or whatever. But with all the amazing technology that's come out in the last 20, 30 years, that's not the case anymore. Sustainable living is extremely feasible, can be a lot cheaper than just buying a normal house, and is immensely freeing because you can build something like an Earthship, for example, that allows you to live totally off grid and generate your own clean water, electricity, and heat and cool your house year round, and so you have no bills. There's no overhead. Yeah.
Wow. So this is. Have you guys actually started building on the property then, or how?
Yes.
Where is it at in the process as of now?
So the first thing we built on there was an Earthship style greenhouse. And if you guys haven't heard of Earthships, Google it.
Yes.
You'll probably see a High Existence
awesome.
article called, it's like 10 reasons Earthships are fucking awesome. Something to that, something like that. Right. It'll explain it very well. But we ran into a guy who had trained building Earthships and had the idea to make a greenhouse version. And so we did a Kickstarter project with him to build a prototype on our land and then create blueprints and give the blueprints to our backers so they could create their own. And that was just a 10 by 20 greenhouse that would allow you to just fairly easily and very 100% sustainably grow your food year round so that you don't have any more food bills.
Right.
So we built that. That was actually a huge endeavor, but it looks amazing now. Yeah, it's a beautiful thing. And now we also have solar sheds, so we have power on the land. We have a nice pizza oven.
Wow.
And currently, one of the founders of Valhalla, Mark Capola, is working on something he calls the Valhalla Villas, which he teams up with some architects in Montreal to co-create some blueprints for these sustainable houses that look like normal houses and are just as cheap to build as Earthships, meaning somewhere between $120,000 and $250,000 for a 3-bedroom that looks amazing. And so as soon as he's done with that, they're going to move forward with fundraising so they can build one of the first ones on land at Valhalla.
Very cool. So as of now, it has a few of the pieces, and as far as accommodations, that's forthcoming.
Yeah. So the current state of Valhalla is that it's still zoned as agricultural land. So unless we get a ton of support from the surrounding community, like people demanding that we're able to build an actual community, it's going to be more of a demonstration site for sustainable architecture and permaculture principles. So we'll have a bunch of different buildings that show different types of architecture so people can come check it out. but we most likely won't have people actually living on the land.
Very, very cool. That's that's such an interesting thing to come up in this conversation, because I'm usually pretty good about doing my research when I'm going to interview someone, and that is a topic that I'm very passionate about. And to find out that you're involved with something like that in the middle of our podcast is a very cool and pleasant surprise.
Yeah, and I can't even tell you how many emails we got from people that found Valhalla and were saying, I'm doing the same thing. Like, we just got 50 acres in Mexico or whatever.
Yeah. It's definitely,
it's the time.
It's definitely the time. You have all these people throwing transformational festivals and so forth, and they're all thinking, how can we do this, on an ongoing basis and make it more of a permanent village infrastructure? And it's something that I've been thinking about for a decade or so, that I've been very interested in doing. And like I said, my business partner just got involved with some pristine, like 23 miles of beachfront property in Mexico. So yeah, it's a huge amount of land. And of course it's other people involved with it, but I've been talking to him about, possibly carving something out to start a prototype sort of community, with the first couple 100 acres or whatever, something like that. So, and,
that's awesome.
And the guys, like I said, with Lucidity, who I just recently interviewed, they've been actively looking at land for a couple years now. So we're going to, probably go down to Mexico in the next few weeks and check out, my partner's land and see how we might be able to start that process. And if indeed that's even the place to do it, you know what I mean? It's still all very, very new. So I'd love to come check out what you guys got going on in Canada at some point in the near future.
Cool. You're always welcome.
Very nice. So as far as, the other stuff, to get back a little bit to the site. So I was looking at some of the different articles that I really found inspiring. Another one, just to throw out a couple of them. One of them, you had come up with a system for productivity, like a seven-step system. Tell me a little bit about that one.
Yeah, this resulted from, there was a 6-month period last year where I was living in Connecticut, and I was fairly isolated. Just like, if you've ever been to Connecticut, there's not much out there, and
only so much to do.
Definitely not much to do. So I was just in hyper work mode and was trying to figure out just the most efficient system for getting things done. And I was going back into old articles and just looking at pre-existing techniques for efficiency, and found 7 different principles that all happen to start with P. I mean, a few of them were a little bit forced, but 5 or so of them started with P naturally.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, the 7P system, this is perfect. So some of those are, Pomodoros, meaning you work in 25 to 35 minute intervals with 5-minute breaks.
Interesting.
So that you don't end up working for 3 hours on one thing and just like, oh, where'd the time go? It's also just good to, get up, take a break, take a mental break.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Let's see. The one that just came to mind was, I forget what it was in the article. It was originally ping pong, because at the time I was playing just a ton of ping pong. Like, whenever we had a 5-minute break, we would go down and play a match, and it got really good. But I think it was in the article, it was something to do with just taking a break and having fun during the day. Play.
Yes,
there we go.
Right.
Yeah, have some fun. Don't just work all day. Let's see. Man, I'm drawing a blank today.
Yeah, and I don't really need you to go through all of them per se. I mean, I don't expect you to have them memorized. Just some certain. I really find it interesting how you come up with some of these lists and systems and so forth. So more, as much as anything, what inspired you to do it and how you kind of came up with it. And people can always go on themselves and check it out and read in detail. So I won't put you on the spot and expect you to have it all memorized off the top of your head.
Okay.
So you had also, anyway, to kind of end on that note, check out the 7P productivity system. He gave you a couple of them there, but I found that article very interesting and helpful as well. So one other thing that you had mentioned, as if you're not involved with enough, you had done a 10-day meditation retreat recently. That's something I've been really interested in doing, never have done it. And that's where you're meditating for like 10, 12 hours a day for, a week and a half straight, right?
Yeah, it's intense. A Vipassana or Vipassana retreat. I did mine up in Washington at a beautiful Vipassana or Vipassana retreat center that had
Uh-huh.
deer walking around it. They were really friendly with the humans because, of course, they only had
Wow.
ever seen the most docile, meditative
Yeah.
humans. So they would just walk right up
Right,
to you.
right.
But it was intense. I didn't really know what to expect. I knew it was going to be stringent and difficult going in. Um, but it was very, very difficult. Possibly one of the most difficult things I've done in my life. So you got 10 days. It is 10 to 12 hours of meditation a day. You wake up at, I think it was 4:30 and do your
Oh,
first
wow.
session, which is in either an hour or an hour and a half. You're also not allowed to talk. You have a strict diet regimen. Like you eat at certain times. You have a breakfast and a lunch, basically. And then if you're not meditating, you're in your room sleeping or meditating even more. And you also
Wow.
can't journal or do yoga or any other type of religious practice, like no praying, nothing. They wanted you totally hyper focused on the Vipassana technique.
Wow. Did you have any kind of breakthroughs or revelations or anything? I've heard before from people. Actually, our mutual friend that I was introduced to you through, Chris, did a 10-day retreat like this. I don't know if you're aware of that. And I know he had moments of like insane inspiration and also a lot of trying kind of times as well. Did you have any of the was there upside for you, I guess?
Definitely an upside, not in the conventional sense. Like I've talked to a lot of people who've done Vipassanas.
Mm-hmm.
I can never remember what it is. And
Potato,
yeah, exactly. A lot of them had really crazy, almost psychedelic experiences for meditating for that long. That wasn't
Right.
really the case for me. I just had a lot of thoughts, which you're not supposed to have while you're meditating, but a lot of thoughts just about life and like what I could be doing better. Things that I could do for other people that I hadn't thought of. It actually ended
Right.
up cheating and writing those things down, even though you weren't supposed to, because I was like, I'm not going to lose all these amazing ideas and
Right.
thoughts. No way.
Yeah.
But let's see. Let's see. Vipassana is interesting because it's very much a dogmatic meditation practice, even though one of the tenets of it is that it's not dogmatic, which is funny.
Right. Interesting.
Most of the retreats that you'll find in the U.S. are based off of this guy named Goenka, who is a guy that brought it over to the U.S. and popularized Vipassana. And the technique is all about just being focused on the small sensations in your body. So on day 5 or so, or 4 or 5, they ask you to not move for the entire hour, hour and a half.
Oh, wow.
So you're totally rigid, and you're just scanning your awareness around your body and feeling like, the little itch on your knee or the intense pain in your lower back or the pleasant, warm vibration in your upper lip. And the whole point is to experience these sensations, but not be repulsed by them or not be addicted to them, whether they're positive or negative, just to be totally okay with them. And it also teaches you that, everything passes, because no matter what the sensation, be it positive or intensely negative, eventually it goes away.
Right.
And that's supposed to, help you do that in normal life. If, someone dies, something bad happens, it's okay. This too shall pass.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
So, that's an interesting feedback. It seems like you and Chris's feedback is very similar as far as your experience. So it's something that I'm interested in exploring at some point, but also I always honestly was kind of hoping to hear from, either of you guys, that it was this hugely inspirational experience. And it sounds like it was kind of a mixed bag, which is probably a little bit more realistic. So I'll have to really carefully consider if I want to dedicate 10 days to the process.
Yeah, if I were to do it again, I would do a meditation retreat, but I would do something different from Vipassana, specifically Goenka Vipassana, because it's such a different environment from normal life. It's very isolated. Right. They have all these rules. You're not talking to anybody. So when even on day 10, when they allow you to talk, it like rocks your world, because
Wow.
it's a lot easier to stay in that meditative space when there's no outside influences, there's no distractions or anything. So I find that it trains you to be very meditative in a specific type of environment, and then it throws you back into the world, and you just don't have a context for it, and you're like, whoa, okay, like where did all my Zen go?
Right, right.
So I would
Interesting.
rather do a meditation retreat that allows you to kind of go back and forth between that like intense meditative state and just normal life, so that you can learn more how to use it in your daily life.
Right, right. Interesting. I also to bring up one more blog that I checked out of yours. You talked about going to Tribal Alliance retreat down in Costa Rica, and that seemed very intriguing to me. Now, was that the retreat that was bumped up against Envision down there? And somehow,
yeah, it was. I think maybe informally connected with Envision. So it just right after Envision, I think it was like 100, or I forget how many people were there. Around 100 people went to this small organic farm in Costa Rica for a little retreat.
Very nice. And what was that like for you? What did you do there?
It was pretty trippy and just relaxing and beautiful. So there were a lot of like ceremonies. It was the most tribal thing I've ever done. I feel like I met the most tribal people that I've ever come across. Right.
Wow.
There's a lot of mentionings of like Pachamama and things like that.
Right.
And let's see, we did, just to mention some of the most powerful experiences there, the number one was definitely this river ceremony that was done at this river where we would go and bathe every morning, which is cool in itself, because just like bathing naked in a river in Costa Rica was just, fantastic. But the river ceremony was amazing because we had people, the entire camp line up on either side of this river, all the way down the river. So maybe, 100 or 200 feet of people on both sides. And then whoever was at the top of the line, actually, I'm remembering this a little bit incorrectly. So we're singing and doing the ceremony, and people start to put their feet into the water. And then one girl who's at the top of the line discovers that if you lie down in this river, which, mind you, is extremely shallow, maybe 10 inches at some parts of it, that you can just barely float along, and sometimes scrape your back a little bit, but you can float along the river on your back and not get hurt. And so one by one, everyone starts to do this, and it was more intense because maybe like 50% of people were completely naked. So it just brought an extra level of intimacy and like just letting go.
Right.
And so you're naked, and you just sit down in the river, and you have to totally let go. And then of course, everyone's looking at you as you float down. So it was a crazy experience of like just release and being okay with what was happening, and, non-judgment and all that. It was
interesting.
It was incredible.
Very cool. Very cool. So, on High Existence, in your about blurb, you mentioned that you live for moments of intense clarity or intoxication. Of course, we talked a little bit about that intoxication. So just to pry a little bit more on that, I mean, it sounds like you're pretty experienced with using psychedelics or plant medicines. And of course, I've had a few people, podcast talking about that very subject. What kind of intoxication, or what type of, plant medicines or psychedelics have you received the most benefit from? What's your preference?
Psilocybin, definitely. Magic mushrooms have been the most influential for me. They're also the one that I've done the most at this point. I always felt like psilocybin and LSD are kind of like brother drugs or sister drugs, in my opinion.
Sure.
And mushrooms feel obviously much more natural, but also kind of like they're giving you lessons for like your soul and your heart, whereas acid is more like, crazy. Think about like the nature of this reality and like how crazy technology is and stuff like that. So much more of like an internal spiritual experience versus a little bit more of an external experience on LSD. So Yeah, mushrooms, and actually, most recently, especially since mushrooms haven't had the same effect on me,
Hmm.
MDMA has been an amazing healing drug. And I know that
Yeah.
it's not all that common for people to hear that about MDMA,
Hmm.
because you think about it as Molly, a rave
Sure.
drug, people just getting dehydrated and dying. But I mean, there's a reason why it's used for PTSD
Right.
therapy. Yeah,
Right.
it's has amazing healing properties, and if you take it in a quiet place, actually, even if you take it at a rave, and you close your eyes and stand still, you'll see what
Hmm.
I'm talking about. You
Yeah.
go incredibly introspective. You will be given wisdom about your life. You'll be able to see just how amazing other people are, and kind of tap into the love that you want to have for people normally. It's fantastic if it's
Definitely a heart
used.
opener.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. It's the heart opener. Yeah.
Sure.
So, I mean, I guess just like with anything, if it's used consciously, it
Yep.
can be a fantastic experience.
Yep. Too much water is bad for you, right? So it's just like anything else, used in the proper context with the right intention and moderation. Yeah, I've definitely found MDMA to be very healing and positive, and it's very a lot of research, of course, with PTSD and things like that. And another one is ketamine, which is shown to really help with depression and PTSD and things like that. So.
Yeah, ketamine's another one that gets a really bad rap because it's a horse tranquilizer, and people think of it as also just a party drug that people, they go into a K-hole and it's horrible.
Right.
But
Right.
ketamine is. I almost don't want to advocate the usage of ketamine because it can be such an intense experience if not used correctly. Be very careful with ketamine if you're trying to experiment with that.
Absolutely.
But it can also give you some really awesome experiences, some nice realizations about just the universe, and in my opinion, a far trippier experience than mushrooms or acid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it can definitely, you got to be very careful with dosage and things like that. But there's so much interesting research now, finally, after these things have all been villainized for so long. And now they're saying, wow, can be super helpful and healing and positive, used in the right context with, responsible people, and not just some person who's a deviant who, is going to do something screwy, whether they have a drug, the help from a substance or not. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So, I always, sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, I have a friend who was suicidal, and I guess ketamine's really good at removing suicidal thoughts and giving people a few weeks after they just have one injection of ketamine to kind of reevaluate and try to get better.
Yeah. I've heard this. And I actually met a guy many years ago named Kerry Mullis, who was Nobel Prize winner in chemistry for his work in DNA analysis. I actually had a friend who he was working for at the time, and he gave a fantastic quote where he said, I think it's something to the effect of, I think I might have been stupid if it weren't for my psychedelic experiences. And this is a guy who, won the Nobel Prize for DNA analysis. So, for people out there, of course, a lot of the my listeners are open to this sort of thing, but there are certainly people who probably haven't been exposed to these types of substances. So I find it interesting whenever I have a guest who is interested in the subject and has experimented like myself to kind of see where their head's at on it. Have you had any?
I think the main thing that they do is just show you that reality is not as concrete as you think it is.
Exactly.
And it just makes you question everything, because after you see the floor in front of you waving and moving, even though it's not actually moving, it's like, what else isn't what it appears to be?
Yeah, absolutely. Tell me about, you also have, you're definitely a guy who's got your hands in a lot of things. You've got a clothing company as well, Rave Nectar, correct?
Yeah.
Is this a new venture?
It's 2 years old now.
Okay.
Yeah, this is while I was up at Valhalla, and I had gone to a music festival called Ultra Music Festival in Miami.
Florida, yeah.
Yeah, it's a great one if you ever get to go. But my girlfriend at the time had sewn together some tank tops for me, just from some kind of crazy bright geometric fabric that we found at a local fabric store.
Uh-huh.
And we went to the rave, and no joke, like 20 people came up to me saying, "Where did you get that tank top? Where did you get it?" I had people trying to get my business card, even though I didn't have a business at that point. And
Right.
I had one guy tried to buy it off my back. And I was like, "Nah, dude, I need a shirt." It was crazy.
Wow.
Like it was almost annoying how many people came up. So
Wow.
after I was like, wow, there's clearly a desire for like crazy clothing. So just over the next few months, I started thinking more about it. And I'd really wanted to try doing a Kickstarter. So I was like, this is perfect for Kickstarter. Like, let's, if it works, it works. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So I started contacting visionary artists on Behance Network and DeviantArt and just saying, hey, I'd love to print your stuff on some shirts and you can have 20% of every sale. I'm going to do this Kickstarter. Are you interested? And then eventually got 10 or so of them to say yes. And I had also learned about sublimation printing from a good friend, Peter Westerman, who runs Thrada.com, fantastic, similar clothing brand to Rave Nectar. And sublimation printing is basically anytime you've seen a shirt that has printing all over it that's extremely vibrant, that's sublimation printing. So I did just one prototype print of each design, took some pictures, shot a Kickstarter video, which is basically just me and my friends running around Montreal in animal masks wearing the shirts, which is a lot of fun to shoot. And just a quick story of how I came up with the idea. And we put a $40,000 or $42,000 goal and raised $71,000.
Wow.
Yeah, it's been
Congrats
going,
on that.
going
That's
strong
awesome.
ever since. Yeah.
Very, very cool.
If you have an idea that requires funding or even doesn't require funding, I highly recommend Kickstarter. It's just a fantastic way to get the word out about your product. And it's even better than just offering pre-sale because people love to kind of feel part of the process of creating something with someone. You're giving someone the opportunity to be a part of the creation of your business.
Right.
And it's just also
and you
really,
reward them with some sort of a gift based off of their donation amount, right? It's not like a equity share kind of situation.
Yeah, it's almost like a glorified pre-sale.
Okay.
But do it.
Very cool. Very cool. Well, you've definitely had the golden touch, it seems. Have you considered setting up a booth or something at any transformational festivals or anything like that? Because if you look at, on ravenectar.com, a lot of those sorts of sublimation prints are so popular. And you see, I'm sure you've been to some of the transformational festivals and seen booths. Have you done anything like that or considering anything like that?
Yeah, we've done a few booths at festivals. Most recently was last year at Sonic Bloom.
Oh, okay. Very nice. Yeah, that just happened, I think. I was talking to a friend earlier who just got back from Sonic Bloom.
Oh, wow. I guess it's already been a year.
Yeah, exactly. And one of the guys that producers that we just released a podcast with, Kalia Scintilla.
Kalia, man, he's awesome.
Yeah, he's incredible. Yeah, such a cool guy too. It was if you have a chance to check it out, the interview is with him and his partner Evolution, and they're incredible. They're really, really cool, and they get into some pretty interesting esoteric, kind of topics in the podcast. So.
Yeah, if anyone out there likes kind of tribal bass music, just look up Womp Shanti by Kalia Scintilla. If you can spell any of what I just said, it's amazing.
Exactly. His name is spelled out on the podcast page in one of the recent podcasts anyway, at the time of this recording. So that brings up an interesting question I have for you. If you were on a deserted island, could bring one artist's music, one book, what would it be?
Rat-a-tat. The musical artist Rat-a-tat. How to bring their discography.
Okay. I'm not familiar with Rat-a-tat.
They're my favorite band of all time, and their music is, if you haven't heard it, I don't know. It's just so unique. It's two guys that play, that make all their music with strange sounds and sounds that they can make from their guitars and putting the guitar sound through synthesizers. And they have music that covers everything from cool remixes of rap songs to songs that remind me of how beautiful the universe is. So they just cover the whole spectrum. And if I was walking around a deserted island listening to Rat-a-tat, I think I'd be okay.
that definitely is a description that interests me. So I like the sound of that. I'll definitely have to check them out.
Cool.
In a book, I'm assuming in Conversations with God, we kind of randomly covered that earlier, right?
Yeah. That would be the book for sure.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Worth a read.
Definitely worth a few reads.
Yeah.
So as far as I'm curious with your perspective in running a site like High Existence, which has all this consciousness expanding material, have you noticed a lot more interest in spirituality in recent years? Have you definitely have your finger on the pulse of this sort of thing. What is, from your perspective, of course, from mine and a lot of others I talk to, it just seems to be ramping up so dramatically in recent years. And so I'm curious, with running a site like you do, what the perspective has been like for you.
Yeah, I think the internet has been amazing for spreading this type of information. It's even on more mainstream blogs nowadays, even websites like Upworthy will write about things related to spiritual concepts or self-improvement. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that I'm sure every generation has always said this, oh, it's happening now.
Yeah, right.
So I think it's been happening for a very long time, but it definitely feels like it's exponential right now with the internet and the rapid pace of information spreading.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I've been on a spiritual path for quite some time, so it's been fascinating for me to find no shortage of people to talk to like yourself who are, very interested in the topic and playing some active role in getting information out there. And whereas in the early days, 18 years or so ago, when I really started on this path, it was like, there's books out there that I could read about, but as far as meeting and actually knowing someone whose head was on the same, in the same place and focused on the same kind of perspective regarding the ultimate nature of reality, it's been really fascinating to watch it grow. And that's something that, of course, has been predicted for a long time too, is, this idea as time is coming. And I think we're seeing that for sure. So I was just curious if you've noticed a big difference in those 6 years or so. And so.
Oh, like since year one, you're saying?
Yeah.
I don't know about through High Existence, because it's, High Existence has always had a really constant flow of people.
Yeah.
Going through it, but I think a good way to look at it is just the knowledge about meditation. Like, I don't know if there's a person you'll meet today that hasn't at least heard of meditation.
That's true.
Which is just the core of spirituality, of personal development. So, yeah.
Right. Cool. Well, to get to one of the questions that I ask everyone that I'm very fascinated with is hearing any story that you may have of, story of synchronicity or serendipity or a positive paranormal story. I'm assuming someone, in your position will have some sort of interesting story that you can share.
Oh, I have quite a story for you. I have two.
Yeah, I like that answer. Oh, please. I love them. So, and so does the audience. So do share.
I'll start the trippier one first. So this is also a psychedelic story. This is up when I was in Canada. And my friend had gotten his hands on a drug, if I remember correctly, 25C-N-BOME, which is kind of like, it's like related to the 2Cs, 2CI, 2CB. And I didn't know much about it. I did enough research to figure out that it was safe, at least to try.
It's a research chemical they call, right? Where it's something that's recently invented, but psychedelic in nature. Yeah,
there weren't too many entries on Airwood. So that's how you know it's new. But it seemed safe enough, So my friend and I were at home alone, and we took it. And it was a weird one, because if I remember correctly, you had to snort liquid. Really weird. Really strange drug. So an hour in, I'm looking at him and we're saying what is this drug? What's happening? Our vision was a little bit staticky, but not in a pleasant way. It didn't feel like euphoria. I kind of felt normal otherwise. Nothing was really happening. I was closing my eyes. I was meditating. Music didn't sound better or worse. All right, what's going on? So my buddy is across the kitchen from me, and I look at him, and all of a sudden I see that he is consistently aging from his current age to 65, and then slowly reverting back to his current age, just in his face. And I'm like, are you seeing anything? And he's like, yeah, dude, I see. And he describes the same thing that I was seeing
Oh, wow.
from me. And I'm like, oh my gosh, okay. So we should probably go do eye gazing. And I had done a little bit of eye gazing before on mushrooms or something. And, you know, I saw some things move, but never anything really concrete. So I was like, okay, let's try eye gazing. So we sit down and we don't move for the next 3 hours. Our eyes are locked. And we start seeing past lives, like extremely clear past lives.
Wow.
So what would happen is that he would morph into someone else. And I don't mean like a slightly different person or something. I mean like totally someone else. And not just out of the peripherals of my eyes or anything, like straight up I could see it. And he would stay in that life for maybe 3 minutes. And during that time, I could kind of feel what his life was like, you know, like if he was a sad person or something really horrible happened to him. And then, so I would describe what I was seeing to him and what I was feeling to him. And then he would describe what he was seeing on me. And then like clockwork, 3 minutes, we would both start shifting at the same time and a new life would be apparent. And this happened for 3 hours and just over and over, I was seeing trends with him. So he was often like a Middle Eastern family man. But I mean, sometimes he would be an alien, like something I couldn't even describe. I'm like, well, I've never seen this before. You have, you know, 3 heads or whatever we were seeing.
Did that freak you out, or were you in a state that you understood, you know, what was going on and you were calm, cool, and collective?
I had read enough about eye gazing and past life regressions that I wasn't freaked out.
Yeah.
And the drug was also really fantastic at keeping you in a very level state. Because normally with eye gazing, like if you get too excited or if you have the desire to see it, then it goes away. It's very tricky like that. But this 25C N-bone was perfect for just keeping you like just flat, which is why it was so confusing initially. So the craziest part was maybe halfway into the trip, and he's once again like a Middle Eastern family guy. He looks like kind of like a desert tradesman or something, like a very wealthy guy who, you know, was doing trading, and he looked really sad. And so I asked in my head, why are you sad? And then all of a sudden it was like, boom, download that his whole family had just died, and he was extremely sad. And I was like, whoa. And I didn't say any of this out loud. And then I see a tear go down from his eye. And so I asked my friend Marty, hey, are you actually crying, or is that just part of the vision that I'm seeing? And he's like, I'm crying, but I don't know why I'm crying.
Wow.
Yeah. So there was a physical manifestation of what I was seeing.
Wow.
Yeah.
Truly incredible experience. Like, that's so powerful. Did you ever take that particular substance again?
No, I've never come across it since then. Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. And then the other one is from the same time period. And this is one of those periods in life where I was just like, you know, super in the zone. I think it was probably during my 30 Days of Fear challenge, which you can read about on High Existence if you search 30 Days of Fear. But basically I was every day for 30 days, I was adding a new habit, like waking up early or doing something that I was scared of or had been putting off.
Yeah.
By the end of 30 days, I was just like on fire. But at the time I just had a lot of faith in just the universe and just that everything was going to be okay and that, you know, I could manifest whatever I want. So, and at the time I hadn't had much success in finding a girlfriend ever since I'd moved up to Canada. Like just had never met someone that really appealed to me. So I was like, I'm tired of this. I'm just going to write down exactly what I want and let's see what happens. So I wrote down a list on paper, and I was like, I want a beautiful Asian girl because I have a thing for Asian girls.
Sounds like my brother. It's all he'll date.
Yeah, and I want her to be hyper intelligent. I want her to challenge me, and I want her to be like a spiritual partner. I want her to know coding, because why not? I'm a coder. Like, if I can choose what I want, let's have her know coding too. Let's code together. That sounds great. And then the list went on. Very specific. And 2 weeks later, lo and behold, she shows up in the house. And she's there from McGill, one of the universities in Montreal, and is there to do a short film on Valhalla.
Wow.
So she's interviewing me on camera. I'm looking into her eyes for 20 minutes. We went on a date the next week or so, and that was it.
The rest is history. Yeah, that's a great story too, because I don't think people understand the power of writing down and giving that kind of like concrete energy to the intention that you set for yourself. It's fascinating the times that I've done that, and then you come back and look at what you wrote down later, and it manifests. You know, me and my partner recently did this for the new place that we're trying to, planning to call in to our reality. And here's what it'll look like. Here's how much land there will be. Here's where it will be located. Here's what, all the features of this place. And I have no doubt that I'll manifest that for myself, which co-creates the experience. So it's a great, I'm really glad that you use that as an example, because, anyone listening to this podcast is probably scratching their head and saying, okay, this guy's 24 years old and he has had such an incredible life. He has all the success with every project that he touches. What's his secret? And I think you've kind of tied it together here towards the end with that example of a story. It's setting the intention and knowing that you can manifest whatever you desire. There is no limit except for where you draw it. I went to a conference recently with Tony Robbins, who you're probably familiar with. I have a friend who's very passionate about Tony Robbins, and he flew me to Australia to attend this, 5-day, 15-hour a day. He was so passionate about me going. He sent me there. And one of the things he talked about in his first book, I think it's called Awaken the Giant Within, is setting these types of goals for yourself and realizing, in the book, he says, but don't be too unrealistic with what you're reaching for. You don't want to say you're going to be the slam dunk champion and you're 5'6". And he used that as an example in the book, where a year later, like 1986, what happens? Spud Webb comes out, 5'6", becomes the slam dunk champion, and he has to go back and revise the book. So I think it was a really powerful lesson for him and for everyone to realize, the sky is the limit. If you want your partner to be a certain way, you want, your career to be a certain way, put that down, put that intention down, and then take action behind it. And the important thing is to believe it and then take action behind it, and not to be offering thoughts and vibrations that are contrary to the manifestation of that experience. Right. So,
yeah, I think a big thing is just actually deciding what you want, because a lot of people, you might even think you know what you want, but if you have to write it down, you really, really have to know. So, for example, I had a friend the other day that was complaining about her lack of success in her love life, and I was like, "Do you know what you want? Do you know what type of guy do you want? What type of guy you want? Do you know what type of relationship you want? Will it be, are you guys going to live together? Are you just going to be, is it going to be a casual? What exactly do you want?" And she's like, I don't know. And I likened it to walking into an ice cream store and saying, the ice cream store man, just give me whatever flavor you think is right. And then he hands you a flavor and you say, "Oh, I didn't want this."
Yeah. Like, I hate bubblegum ice cream.
Exactly. It's like, whose fault is that? You didn't know what you wanted. So of course you're not going to like what showed up.
Yeah. Exactly. It's a great point. Being clear on what it is that you want. And sometimes that takes time as well. But definitely, having a solid idea of what direction you want to go definitely makes a difference when it comes to co-creating your experience and your reality. Mm-hmm. So what are the plans for the future? Anything? You've got a lot going on, man. Anything exciting that you're working on project-wise that you want to share?
Yeah, sure. So actually, I'm in an in-between period of deciding what I want to do next, and I've been so inundated with projects over the last 6 years that I'm actually going to be stepping away from High Existence in September.
Oh wow!
It's still going to be totally fully running. Everyone that works there besides me will still be working on it. But gotcha. I'm going to step away, and I'm also going to I'm attempting to just automate myself out of Rave Nectar, so that both of those things can run independently, and I can take some time off. My first vacation and first real vacation, like no laptop, no working in 6 years, and really buckle down and try to figure out what's next.
Wow, that's awesome, man. That's important. As important as any project is making time for yourself and enjoying life, stopping and smelling the roses. So congratulations on that decision.
Thank you.
Well, Jordan, this has been absolutely incredible chatting with you. You're such an interesting guy, and I appreciate you taking the time. One of the last things that I always like to ask, and I always jokingly say, put people on the spot. In 60 seconds or less, what is the meaning of life according to Jordan Lejuwaan?
I think the meaning of life is to have the most fantastical experiences here in this reality that you possibly can. And what's awesome about that is that the most amazing experiences happen to come from helping other people. Like it's really convenient that that's the way this universe works, that the most magical, powerful, just fulfilling experiences are from helping other people. So I would say the purpose is to discover your gift and what you can contribute to mankind, and to put all of your time and energy into developing that gift.
That's awesome, man. I love that answer. And, I always say, something similar to that, whenever I get on that kind of topic, it's like, why is reality structured that way, where, you get what you give? And it's because we're all connected. We're all, the same energy in different bodies. And so when you realize that you'll always have the opportunity to give what you want for yourself, you'll find the opportunity to give it away to someone else. Do it, because you're essentially giving it to another part of self, and that energy will come back. You'll feel the energetic repercussions of it, right?
Absolutely.
So, wonderful answer. Jordan, thank you so much for joining me. This has been really spectacular. And until next time, remember, as long as you ain't dead, you're already positive ahead. Take care, everyone.